Today we're joined by Sarah Waddington, our first CBE to be on the podcast. Sarah is the CEO of the PRCA, the world's largest professional body for public affairs, PR and communications. She's had an incredibly impressive career in PR to date, championing women and diversity in the industry and ensuring PR is seen as the impactful discipline it is. We'll be talking about everything from fake experts to that Martin Sorrell conversation. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely to have you. Steve kind of touched on it a little bit, but you have worn a lot of hats in your career up until this point. So non-exec director, coach, activist, podcaster, I could go on. If you were going to meet someone who didn't really know what PR was, what exactly would you say that you do?
Yeah, I used to cut to the quick and say professional advisor or management consultant, because when I was doing the non-exec roles, it was a much easier shorthand and people kind of got their head around that. And now I talk about being in the reputation business, because fundamentally that's what we do, isn't it? We help organisations manage their reputation and de-risk. And if you talk about it in those kind of terms, it's much easier for people to get their head round. And it also moves us away from that media relations debate that no doubt we'll get into.
Skipping ahead there.
We certainly will. We certainly will. We're really keen to talk to you, Sarah, about your work with the PRCA. So you're CEO of the PRCA. What is on your to-do list there? What are you looking to achieve this year and beyond? You've already done a lot of things, but just tell us what you're planning.
Yeah, no, it's a big role, and I know it's a real privilege to be in it. As a trade association, it's really important that the sector has appropriate representation, and so that is really the guiding mission. Everything we do at the PRCA is about raising understanding and awareness of public relations and then increasing investment in our services. You know, I really see a massive opportunity for public relations and public affairs at the moment. We're in a very fractured society. Our role as strategic communicators is to broker understanding between disparate groups. It doesn't have to be agreement, but understanding. And if you think, you look around any continent right now, our work has never been more needed. Trust is pretty much broken. If you read the latest Edelman report, that was really quite stark reading and quite scary, really. But it means that, fundamentally for us, what we do in terms of creating relationships, building trust, it's ever more important. And so my mission is to get the PR word out there. This is where the investment should be, and this is how we can help.
And as you touched on, it's a bit of a stark time, but you've got like what's happening in the world, full stop. You've got AI. Do you ever feel a little bit overwhelmed with what you have on your plate?
Yeah. When do I not? No, but also yes and no. It would be very easy to kind of get overwhelmed and kind of get that. So where status, when you kind of you can't do anything because everything just feels a bit too big. And my friend always says to me when we chat about this, she says, "How do you eat an elephant? Bite, bite, bite." And it's exactly the same approach to that, really. And if you really think about what we do, that the mission is increasing investment in our services. When you get a laser focus on that, and that's not difficult to build a work plan around. So for me, it's really helpful. And at PRCA, we are working hard to put a value on what we do. So earlier this year, we commissioned CBI Economics to do some research for us, which for the first time will give us an idea of the value to the UK economy. And I think that's really powerful. So when we engage with policymakers, already I'm saying, look, you need to take us seriously. We're credible players. We can help with reputation. We can help with understanding. We can help broker trust. But this is what we do, and this is how much it's bringing into the economy. And I think that gives us yet another starting point for serious conversations. So it's quite an exciting time. And AI, I see it as an enabler. We're a people business that, people buy people, you hear that saying all the time, and it's fundamentally a truth. It's a technology and it will still need human insight. So for me, it's about how do we help the profession embrace that change and understand the power that it has, but do that ethically with the appropriate guardrails in place. So again, you just have to look at each one and say, actually, what's the real need for the industry and what's our role within that? So once you start to break it down like that, things start to become clear. Not always, but, we also have a fantastic community at the PRCA. We don't just have the membership. We have some absolutely brilliant volunteers, all of whom are domain experts. And I'm grateful for them every single day because we drill down that specialism and they help take us forward. So it's not all on my shoulders. It's a community effort.
How does the volunteering at PRCA work then? Because I think quite a lot of our listeners might well be interested in that. Obviously, we tend to have a digital PR slant on things, but PRCA very, very relevant for that, of course. So if people wanted to get involved with volunteering, is there like an opportunity or an easy opportunity to do so?
Sure. I mean, it starts with membership. So a lot of people use it because they want to also give back, but also they want to build their credibility. And so when you become a member, we have a strategic objectives form that we ask new members to complete. And it just helps to understand where that business, that organisation is in its own life cycle and what its needs are. And then we can connect it up and also connect the specialism. So, you can use it very much as a platform building opportunity to get on our podcast, to speak at our events, to provide blog content or reports if you're publishing those. But the opportunities go way beyond that. It just depends on what the need is. So we've got members who are now drilling down our new business advisory service, which is led by our fellows. Our fellows basically provide professional advisory support to those who need it, whatever their need might be. If you wanted to grow, you want to go into international markets, you're thinking about succession planning. And we have a number of partners as well that members can chat to. So, I mean, there's just so many opportunities. And I'm not going to do the big sales chat now. I'm happy to do that if anybody wants to chat. But, yeah, people say, it's a big investment, a PRCA membership. But the way we've built the member value proposition, I'd almost say it's a false economy not to be part of the organisation now because we're there to provide you with everything you need to kind of navigate this turbulence that everybody's experiencing, but also ride that through and hopefully grow.
Former guest on our podcast, Stephen Kenwright, who has worked in the digital PR industry. He did a talk or a kind of deck that he had, I think, did live, but then also shared on LinkedIn. And within it, he was saying how he feels that one of the best things a digital PR agency, so maybe an agency that focuses maybe traditionally a bit more on SEO or now GEO or AI search, how being part of a body like the PRCA is, he feels, really important going forward. I think he was kind of linking it to what's been going on in the last couple of months since the beginning of the year around fake experts and PR professionals being kind of called out for doing dodgy things, often using AI and things like that. And yeah, having that kind of body and I guess respectable name behind you is going to become more and more important. The kind of big story around the fake experts, I know that the PRCA or yourself kind of put out a bit of a statement around it to say, obviously, well, actually, I won't say it for you. What are your
thoughts?
For people who didn't see the statement, or if you've had any further thinkings on it, then it would be interesting to share, because it was such a big thing that happened within our digital PR industry, because to be frank, the people who were doing it, I think, are people from the more SEO side of things.
You took the words out of my mouth. And it's interesting. And I'm grateful to Stephen. And maybe I need to find a way to thank him if he's driving people to the PRCA. Well, may that continue. And thank you, Mr. Kenwright. But fundamentally, I think there's a few things there to break down the different elements of the question. There is a real reputational threat to the industry. First off, the whole industry. And it's a very small number of bad actors that are poisoning the well, but all the good practitioners are being impacted by this. So obviously that's the thing that I wanted to say, because there was a distinction. The very good people I'll be speaking to at the Digital PR Summit, thanks to an introduction from Stephen, actually, I'm pretty sure that they're there because they're interested in professional development and they're doing excellent work. So there's that first distinction, but this is an issue and it's a growing issue. And we can come on to the media side of that in a moment. But I think a lot, the benefit of a PRCA membership is, like you say, the credibility, because you have to sign up to a code of conduct. And actually, if you do public affairs, they sign up to 2, because it's a code for professional lobbying 2. So I think that's really, really important. And the other thing is that we get better representation, including from across the regions, not just the different disciplines within public relations. And it means that we can have a more cohesive, representative voice. And I think that's really important, because I think there's an element of the digital cohort that haven't really, what's the word, fraternalized? But like we haven't been part of one big coherent community before, and we need to break down those silos. I don't like the term digital PR. I don't know if this is going to be contentious or not. I think it's a nonsense. PR is PR. I'm pretty, again, the people that come to the summit on Wednesday, I think they'll be doing what anybody else in PR would consider themselves to be doing, providing good, strategic, ethical, honest advice according to the business need, and actually how the tactical execution is just dependent on what the organisation's requirements are. So that's another thing I'd like to see broken down. But yes, I'd love to see the digital community uniting with us, so there is a bigger voice, because we're all looking to achieve the same thing. We want to see our organisations succeed, our own, but also those people who are employing us. That's going to be something that's going to be lovely to explore and to be exploring with you today, because these two silos, it's a madness, really. And I know Stephen Ken feels the same about it. We're all in this together, and what we need is a very, very strong voice, a unified voice, telling people why they should be hiring us, and the good that we can do, and the societal impact as much as the economic impact that we can bring.
Why do you think there has been that silo? Because we've been both come from traditional, let's call it traditional and digital for now.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah, the semantics are sort of always quite interesting with this, but we've both come from traditional into digital, and we've definitely seen that silo. We work with lots of traditional agencies across our clients, but why do you think it's been siloed, Sarah? And it's great you're trying to bring it together, but why is it?
I just think that's been about the pace of technological adoption. There have been some people who've grasped an opportunity quicker than the other. Mm-hmm. And also it's been about it also depends on where you've been in terms of tactical execution. I think there've been some traditional PR people who said, well, I don't necessarily do media relations, I don't necessarily do digital PR in that sense. They've been doing the professional advisory role, maybe the futures and foresights work, maybe the crisis management. It just depends in which area you've been specialising, I guess. So I think that's been an issue. But I think the pace of change now is such that it's a much more level playing field. I think almost everybody's got their head around new technologies and is certainly embracing PR. And I think this is the time. I feel like the moment we're at a moment of significant change and a moment of significant opportunity, and it's all coming together. And this is why I'm keen to do that unifying role, because if we come together and we can get people to really understand what it is that we do, we don't need these internal names at all, because like I say, it's one and the same thing. So I think probably it's been about the pace of adoption, and now the job itself has changed. So fundamentally, we just need to get our heads around that and speak with one voice.
Do you think what was it, probably about 10 years ago, when what we call digital PR, the kind of link between SEO and PR started to kind of bubble up, that obviously caused this silo effect. The thing, the thing now is obviously GEO.
Yeah, that's a really good unifying point. You're absolutely right. I mean, the thing is as well, nobody wants to be seen as the person emailing for a backlink, do they? I mean, let's be honest about it. Who wants the job of emailing someone to say, can you put this hyperlink into this article, please? We don't want anybody in PR to be having to I don't know, for that to become what they think their job is. It might be a part of the job, but actually the job is much, much bigger. And that's why I keep pulling everybody to stop focusing on tiny aspect of the role and move out. And GEO is a really interesting one, isn't it? And we're doing quite a bit of work around that at the PRCA. It looks like the LLMs are prioritising owned and earned media, which is an absolutely fantastic thing for the public relations industry. We just have to tread with care, because at the moment there isn't a huge amount of data to back that up. And obviously it takes one overnight change to throw that into disarray. But I genuinely believe that to be the case. It's certainly what I'm reading as much as I possibly can around this. And I'm keen to lean into this, because we can use this to our advantage, and we are right now. So at the PRCA, we are writing to procurement bodies and to membership bodies and to directors to say, you really need to be thinking about the briefs you're putting out right now, in this LLM world, and this, the way that content out there is actually churned and prioritized. Your reputation monitoring needs to be better than ever. And who's the people to do that? That's us. So whatever you're doing, wherever you're putting your money, you might want to think about moving that marketing brief into a public relations brief. So I really, I think it's a great opportunity for us. But I guess what I'm saying is, sounding a note of caution, so we just have to tread gently and with care. Yes,
definitely, because there's so much going on with it, like that, and you've alluded to it. It changes kind of almost every day and can change very, very quickly. I'm keen to get your views on someone I'm going to give you a sort of hypothetical example because this is on my mind constantly. Someone who's just starting out in the PR industry, they've joined an agency, or they've maybe studied, PR marketing at university. What do you think the kind of future looks like for them? Because a lot of what we hear about GEO is that not GEO, sorry, but AI usage is it doesn't necessarily help the career ladder, almost like it can cut kind of junior jobs out and things like that. And this is definitely I don't necessarily believe it to be true, by the way. I just am quite interested by the lack of thought by sort of a lot of agencies, a lot of people. And it's just like, we'll make things easier and quicker. And I just want to get your views on it, really.
Yeah, people love the path of least resistance, don't they? So they see a new technology, think, great, shiny new thing, I can cut costs, and it's not the way. If you think about the workforce of the future, we'll still need to be driving AI, but you need someone who understands how to do that, how to create good content, how to write the most appropriate prompts, how to test whatever's coming back from the LLMs. And so for me, again, it's another one of these where it's sounding a note of caution, because it just depends on, again, what you want the role of the people coming into the business to do. But if you're thinking in terms of, and where I believe all PR should be, strategic advisory, they need business and management skills. They will be digitally native anyway, and we need to teach them what good content looks like. We need to teach them all about reputation, what that means to business, how businesses can very quickly lose value, that whole nice risk preparedness, crisis management, all those good things, futures and foresights work. None of that, I think part of our issue is that none of that has been necessarily run of the mill for our graduates or early career people, and they should have been, and they certainly need to be now. One of the things that I hear most from agencies particularly is that they just don't see people who've got the new business development skills that are required. So I just think it's a case of, as an industry, understanding the direction of travel and making sure that the people who are coming in are adequately prepared. And certainly that's what we're looking at the PRCA through we've got an Ofsted Outstanding apprenticeship scheme, but we're also building our training offer around that, in terms of making sure that people can get the business and management courses from the off, not just as they go. And we've just done a partnership with the IOD for more senior people within the industry to get the governance and company direction elements. But it's just got to be a bit more thoughtful. I kind of feel that people still get caught up with very tactical execution. And again, for me, it's like, how do I get everybody to take a step back, look at their organisation and say, okay, how do we maximise the opportunity in front of us, but what does that training need and our business need as we transition to the higher fee earning work, which comes with the consultancy element.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of touched on training that you offer, and I guess thinking about how you can make the best PR practitioners when they're joining the industry. But I know you've also done a lot of work on kind of gender within the PR industry. You worked on the gender policy work at the CIPR. In terms of kind of pay gap, women returners, how have things changed, basically? Do you feel positive about where you were kind of from 2014 to now? What are your thoughts on that side of things in terms of the PR industry?
It's a difficult one. I would like to say we are further along than we are, but we're not. So back in 2014, you're right, I was working on the board of the CIPR, and they were very keen to, being a predominantly female industry, look at things like gender policies and just the gender gap generally. It wasn't even just about the gender pay gap. And so I did quite a lot of work with that. And as I went on and I became CIPR president, I was looking at industry data regularly in a way that I hadn't before. And personally got very frustrated. If you were to meet me now, you might think, I'm very nicely middle class, but that's not my background at all. And I had many challenges when I was growing up. And I'm a big believer in leaving the ladder down. And what I was seeing and reading, and continues to be seen within different reports, whether it's the state of the profession, whether it's the PRCA census, PR has for a long time become a bit of a closed profession unless you're white, well-networked, pretty middle class, have someone who can sponsor you. I've always found that a bit of a bone of contention, and that is amplified for me by the fact that we have some absolutely fantastic initiatives all working hard to solve some of the big issues, so we do have better representation within the industry. So there's I'm going to miss some, so I'm sorry to whoever I missed, but there's some brilliant people. You've got people like Asian Communication Network, Black Comms Network, the CIC I co-founder with my husband Steve, and Socially Mobile. There are many of us as women in PR, so many, and we actually met probably about this time last year to say, we're all doing great work, but why is this not really having an impact? And so that's actually something I'm looking at the PRC at the moment. We're going to create something called the Sector of Solidarity, because I want us to bring all that great work together so we have one central house, so that and we become a sector known for its inclusivity, because we're just not at that point yet. You touched on gender, but for Socially Mobile, we published a report called Missing Women. I think it was early last year, maybe the year before. Since COVID, I have no idea on times anymore. Everything just feels like just last year. But, that talked about 4,000 women who have left or failed to advance in the industry because they just can't get the support they need to do so. And that's wicked, and that's just one element of representation, and it's because the report found there were cultural, structural, and societal issues behind that. So a boys' club mentality, the devaluation of PR as being seen as soft work, which I would argue wholeheartedly against, limited development pathways, poor maternity support, inflexible working patterns. And then, women often getting the heavier duty caregiving responsibility. And that's not just downwards with kids, but upwards as you get to that middle age where you're fighting, like me, perimenopause, but also have caring duties upwards. And so there are still many issues. I mean, I think, if you were to talk to lots of female directors right now, they'd say they would still see all of that. I can speak to the fact that through Socially Mobile, we're creating a little army of people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds who are going in to new leadership roles and creating teams in their likeness. And that feels really good, because again, we don't see social mobility so much. And it continues to be age-old issues, for our minority ethnic colleagues who might get into a role but don't have progression opportunities, so they get stuck. And it's wicked, really. And we know there's huge amounts of data which says fully diverse teams perform better commercially. And it's not just a good thing to have. There's a whole commercial imperative behind it. So you've got me on a bit of a bandwagon there, but there's still so much to do, because fundamentally, this is a wonderful opportunity. We're supposed to represent society, but if our teams don't represent society, how can we be giving good advice? So it's something that we need to sort. But hopefully for the Sector of Solidarity initiative that we'll launch later this year, be able to bring all those fantastic initiatives together, have a kind of home where they can all live, and people can immediately be signposted to the support that's available, and we can then look at the gaps and provide a more solid intervention that will bring the meaningful change that's needed. And I'm grateful to everybody who's agreed to be part of that, including those initiatives. CIPR will also be part of that, because it needs a sector-wide answer. It's not something that any one initiative or organisation can do on its own.
That sounds great. So that's all those kind of groups that you mentioned, so like including like Women PR, for example, they'll be part of that.
Absolutely. So what we're trying to do is just bring that together. And we're just looking at how we do that. But and so we'll probably be looking for some sponsorship going forward, just to be able to get ourselves build our website, and probably we need to create some kind of creative approach as well. So there's a limit to what we can do within the PRCA, but also, and we can ask our volunteers to do. So if you know anybody who might be interested in supporting with that, they'd be very welcome to have a conversation with me and the team. But that's the big one of the big goals. I just think we're at a point where there's a lot of bad actors. There's a lot of right-wing rhetoric. There is a lot of people within our industry and further afield feeling very frightened at the moment. And if we as professional communicators don't take the stance, who's going to do that? Because I think there's a way that we can show that you can stand up to racism, to bigotry, in a way that's meaningful. but also safe. And because we always have to keep safety front of mind, because, we don't want to have reprisals for anybody who's working within this. And it's we also don't want it to be too politicized, because that becomes very difficult then too. And we've seen that, we've been talking to different people, like different organizations who have been impacted by taking a voice and then, getting a pile on. And we just don't want to go down that route if we can avoid it.
Usually we do this at the end of the show, but like if people did want to get in touch when this episode goes out, is the best way to contact you, would that be via LinkedIn? Like, yeah, how best to contact you if they wanted to support with that initiative or anything to do with that? I'd love
to hear from people, because this is really, really important. I do think this is one of the key things I want to hang our hat on, but it's because it's a collective thing, and we do need to make the change now. We can't keep going in the way we've been going. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn regularly. I'm hopefully won't regret this, but I'm Sarah.Waddington at PRCA.global. So that's always the best, probably the best and fastest way. But no, I'll be really grateful for people who find that interesting and might be able to help, particularly with getting a web build, because just having somewhere we can have everybody's details housed, that would be a wonderful step forward.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for being so sort of, honest, candid, and sort of forthcoming on all of those things, because it is hugely important. As you say, if we're meant to represent society, and if we're not doing that within agencies, within the industry, then how can we? So yeah, do get in touch with Sarah if you want to speak to her more about that.
The Digital PR podcast is brought to you by Coverage Book, the tool that is helping thousands of PR teams around the world spend less time and effort on reporting so they can put their energy back into the more important parts of PR. Many people come for the metrics, but then they stay for our estimated coverage views figures. That's right, we predict how many people may see your article or social post. We don't just tell you the total amount of people that happen to go to a publisher site or an influencer's feed. We really are about helping PR professionals be taken seriously at the important time of measuring success. So why don't you give it a try? Test the metrics and see how much time your team can save. Go to coveragebook.com for your free trial.
We wanted to speak to you more about PR, the definition of PR, the kind of reputation of the industry. We are obviously going to reference something from earlier this year, which piqued mine and Louise's interest alongside, vast swathes of the industry. You debated PR with Sir Martin Sorrell, and you followed up with a new definition of PR. For anyone who missed it, can you tell our listeners what that definition of PR is and why you think PR is often misunderstood?
Yeah, sure. Yes, and actually that PR, that story still rumbles on. I noticed PR Week have got another update from mine and Sir Martin Sorrell's chit-chat on the radio before Christmas. So just for anybody who missed that, I ended up on Radio 4's Today programme and was expecting to talk about the rise of storytelling, because storytelling has come up, it's increased in mentions in job descriptions. And so it's supposed to be a very simple chat, which I thought would be very straightforward with Sir Martin Sorrell. He'd talk about it from an advertising perspective. I'd talk about it from PR. I'm just very grateful to one of my PR and comms board members who just sent me a little note saying, I hope he's not, I think he said too cantankerous or something like that today. And I hadn't thought about it. I know Sir Martin Sorrell by name and reputation only. I've never met him. But I'm glad he said that, because I actually then went onto the radio being a bit more prepped. I was just like, I don't know what that means, so I better be ready for anything, which is just as well, because Sir Martin Sorrell basically said that PR was dead, and everybody should just he literally said flood the internet, meaning you just spend your money on paid content, which obviously I contested quite hard, but it was really good because he did me a massive favour. So thank you, Martin, for doing me a solid. That a lot of the work that we were doing, which was having cut through with members but not much wider, then that whole work became very clear to people, because it kind of sparked an industry debate. And LinkedIn was red hot for, I'm not going to say it's still red hot about it. I still get messages all the time of people saying, I heard you on the Radio 4. Radio is not dead. Everybody still listens to the radio. Who knew? I got such a shock. Didn't believe it, but it's true. And so what was really useful about that is when people are saying that's an absolute nonsense about PR being dead. We're fed up of it. Thanks for defending us. But it was really good because I could start to talk about where we believe the future of the industry is. And we do think it's in that higher value advisory piece, with all the good stuff underneath it. You can still do all the delivery, but actually, where do we want to be? We want to be advising management teams to help them de-risk their business, take ethical decisions, and protect their reputation. And so one of the things I wanted to do, because Sir Martin does what a lot of people do. I think in his head, he conflates PR with media relations. And that's fine. It's been an age-old problem. I thought, you know what? We're going to deal with this once and for all. It's absolutely nuts. And there are good PR definitions out there. And I think the CIPR one is a very good one. But for me, it speaks to the industry rather than to anybody externally. So what we were trying to achieve is to get to a definition that actually anybody in business would get and understand and think, actually, yeah, now I understand what their role within our organisation would be. And so we went out and did a member consultation, which was also quite contentious because people were like, well, I want to have a voice on this, but it's a really big job and I wouldn't dare to speak on behalf of the wider industry. I wanted to make sure that we were serving our community and that they had something that they could use efficiently. And so we did this piece of work, and where we landed, we have kind of like a core definition. And I won't read the extended definition because it is a little bit longer, but I would say to people, please go and look at it, because if you're wondering what to do with your business, you're wondering where the future of public relations belongs, I would suggest that, looking at that will help you decide what you think, where you think the future will be, where your training needs might be, do a bit of a gap analysis. But fundamentally, where we settled was that public relations is the strategic management discipline that builds trust, enhances reputation, and helps leaders interpret complexity and manage volatility, delivering measurable outcomes, including stakeholder confidence, long-term value creation, and commercial growth. And I think that's really, really important, because we've shied away in the past from talking about the commercial value that we bring to businesses. And that's where advertising has gone really well. You spend this much, we'll deliver this much in sales. And we've all been a bit scared to do that. And we just haven't really thought about what that means. And if you think about this VUCA world, from day to day, I mean, who knew there'd be a war in the Middle East right now at the start of this year? I mean, I would have hazarded a guess it wasn't in most people's planning. But, businesses are really, really struggling, and they need people like us with sensible business heads and an ethical compass to say, okay, how do we do this? How do we navigate this turbulence? What does the future look like? If we're doing futures and foresights work, we should be able to say, well, look, this is what's around the horizon 1, horizon 2, and horizon 3. That's what we're actually looking for. But back to anything, it's about the trust element. Right now, people want to have partnerships and relationships and contracts with people that they trust. And that trust is, it's really hard to get. And what we can do is create the relationships. And it's not just about, with customers who will buy one thing like advertising might deliver or paid content on the internet. It's about the lifetime value that we can bring. Because, if we, through the brand work that we do, engage with them truthfully, consistently, they will come back, and they come back time and time again. And you've got a bit of grace if you get something wrong and you say so, because that's actually when you really do start to build trust with people, and they think, actually, do you know what, I'm going to hold behind that company because I believe in them. And a misstep, but we can forgive it. So I personally feel very comfortable about where our community landed. But I'd be interested to hear what you both think.
Lou.
Well, there's a few key bits in the definition which I particularly like. I really love the talking of measurement. I think from mine and Steve's background, one of the really great benefits of being able to link PR with SEO, and this is so smaller scale, but you can show that your PR work is getting revenue benefits to an online business. And for me, coming from a traditional PR background, going into this, that just opened my eyes to how much value PR could bring. Because I think you're so right. You've touched on it a few times around, it's seen as a soft kind of career, and these it's really not, and it's really valuable and impactful, and can change what huge swathes of an audience are talking about day to day. And I really love that part of it. So I I think that particularly is a really interesting talking point, and I think speaks to a lot of digital PR people. Sorry, I know you don't like that term, but I'll use it for now.
That's fine, you're forgiven.
Speaks to us particularly because it's something that I think we can feel quite proud of.
Well, you're right. And I think, SEO and digital people have done that better in terms of linking immediately to to commercial outcomes. And I think that's really important. But fundamentally, what we're saying, it's about credible two-way engagement that shapes perception, as you've just said. You can influence swathes of people. I think that was the wording you used. Informs decision-making. We support behaviour change and we build those commercial revenues. But fundamentally, what we're also trying to do is drive societal and economic impact. And I do think that's a big differentiator to paid content and advertising, which is just flinging money around to one commercial aim, potentially. You know what I mean? So that I do see this as a very clear mission. And, we can do all the good tactical stuff, but fundamentally where we need to be is up the value chain. We need to be closer to management consultancy. That is the big opportunity. And that's what I will bang on about for forever, because that's the sweet spot. So this is why digital SEO, traditional, whatever you want to call it, we all need to unite together. And that's the story we should be telling collectively, all supported by a code of conduct like the PRCA. So we've got that credibility. And so people know that the rigor and the commitment to CPD is there. And I do honestly think if we get this right at this moment in time with this, the AI transformation, with the needs of the world at large, I think this industry could be completely transformed. So it's kind of like a scary place, but a very exciting place. But it needs everybody to back that mission.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting with the AI side of things, because I remember when it was all, when ChatGPT was used by more people and everyone started being like, oh, this is actually very good. And then the conversations around, are we going to lose our jobs and all this kind of stuff? It did rock me for a bit to think hang on, where is PR going to be in this? I'm not sure. And over the last couple of months, there's been such interesting studies around, and you've mentioned it yourself, about how those kind of third-party references to your brand and your reputation are so important, that it's such a exciting time. And who would have thought?
Well, there's no longer fish and chip paper, is it? Do you remember the days where you'd be able to kind of go, do you know what? And I've gone viral globally. And even back then, it was a case of you knew that it would blow over. It's just not going to work in the same way. So if you're not looking, if you're not doing that audit, if you're not correcting misinformation, if you're not making sure that you're factual in what you're actually, the narrative that you're putting out, that's all really within our wheelhouse. And you need good actors, you need ethical people who are going to do that. And this is why also, of course, I'm going to say this PRCA membership is so important, because we're policing that. At this moment in time, it could go really, really well, or it could go really, really badly.
Absolutely. Well, we're with you on that. And I think I love the fact that, and you said it at the start of your answer to that question when you were debating Sir Martin Sorrell, that he was conflating it with PR with media relations, and that's the kind of almost like I was going to say lifelong struggle, which sounds so sort of OTT from me. But since I've worked in PR, when I'm trying to describe it to people, they just think it's like writing a press release and sending it out. It's a really difficult discipline to get right, not just to tell a story, but to find the right story, to give the right kind of consultancy, the right kind of strategic advice. And yeah, you said scary and exciting. I kind of live for that at the moment. I like the fact it's scary and exciting, and you're fully embracing it, Sarah, and putting that at the front of your mission for the PRCA, which is wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's so important. But the more we think about us as being a strategic management discipline, it's really interesting because it really focuses your mind on what we need to know and the skills that you need. So like I say, I don't ever think the media relations element's going to go away, the SEO bit's not going away. Do you know what I mean? That's all fundamental parts of what we do, but it's a small element of it when you start to go up the chain. And it just means that it just creates so much more opportunity. So when people are feeling frightened right now, which many people are, because you've said that AI, I know young people are looking at it and feeling scared for what the future holds for them. I know there are agency bosses, in-house people going, what does this mean to me? Am I going to have to hollow out the team? Do we exist? It's an existential crisis almost, but it really doesn't have to be that way. It is additive if it's used in the right way and if we move upstream. And that's the key thing. And back to what we said earlier, so I didn't quite finish the answer because I know it was a multifaceted question, but it's really important when, you've got all this fakery, they're poisoning the well. So to be able to separate ourselves from that. And we need, the media also to invest in doing the right checks. And I feel for the media because, the investment that's lacking in what they do these days in newsrooms is tough. And actually, again, it's a bit like us. We need those people holding power to account and scrutinising things appropriately, and we need to work in lockstep with them, and we always will need to, because there's synergies with both industries. So it's a fascinating, tricky, fast-moving time, but we got this, right? We got it.
We do.
Yes.
I felt inspired by that.
Yeah, I feel positive.
We have a couple of final questions for you. The first, we've kind of covered AI. I say we've covered AI. There's so much we could talk about, but I was interested to know just a little bit about your CBE for services to PR in the voluntary sectors, because it is an extraordinary achievement. You're the first CBE on the podcast that we've had. Like, what did that moment feel like personally for you?
It felt wild, and it still does. And I'm proud of it. And I talk about it, and I have it against my name, because I also think that if someone like me can get that, anybody can. So, and I want people to know that. It's an interesting one, because it's never been anything that I had in my head. You know how some people have different goals. I'm not like that in terms of, like right now I've got a very clear mission for the PRCA. I'm kind of consumed by that, but I never had an idea like that as I was working up. I just did an awful lot of work that, as I was developing, I've always had outside interests rather than just the role. And I did things that they were twofold. They had twofold benefit. They were put back in society, which mattered to me, but also I knew that I would grow. So I became a charity trustee because I wanted to get boardroom skills. So that was helping me, and I was able to put back at the same time. So to eventually be recognised for that, I created a community called Future Proof, which is all about kind of democratizing learning so that people can get expertise at their fingertips and learn from others. And then, of course, I got the CBE before Socially Mobile launched, but they're just examples of things that I've done to try and to put back, but like many good people who are doing. But it was astonishing, actually. I remember it was in COVID, and I sat at my desk. It was right here about 6:00 at night, and a separate story completely, but we'd unfortunately been having problems with the stalker, and the Met Police were involved in all sorts. And I got this email. It was a very odd titled email. I can't remember what it was exactly, but I just looked at it and just thought, FFS, it's this person again. So I stomped into the kitchen with my laptop and shouted at my husband, who was like over the hob, and said, "Oh, look at this." And then when I looked at it again, I said, "Hang on a minute, it's something completely different." And then I got this letter, and then it said CBE, and it was just, I'll never forget that moment. It was a bit like where you were when when you heard about Princess Diana, or like when you heard about the Twin Towers. It was a bit like, whoa, it's absolutely wild. But it's a real honour, and I'm really grateful to all the people who took time to write in and give references for me. Mind-blowing.
Oh,
I was in a room with Chris Whitty. I was a bit like, how did I get into a room with Chris Whitty? And yeah.
Oh, COVID
and
hero.
the money-saving Guy Martin.
Oh, amazing.
That's a good dinner party list.
Yeah, I walked past Tom Daly. He was back there. He was only an MBE or something. And I was like, how does this work? It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, very special. Cool. And like I say, I'll always be grateful.
Oh, lovely. We do have one final question for you. I'm assuming you're allowed to do this in your position at the PRCA, but is there anyone in the PR industry at the moment that genuinely excites you? I guess it could be people or agencies or brands or people doing interesting, exciting work. Is there anyone you'd like to shout out or just say that you really admire them?
Well, as a PRC, it's a bit like being a parent. You can't have a favourite, right? So first off, I'm going to say that. So I'm going to go down the other one, which is like inducing. But I have to say, on this occasion, genuinely, my husband Stephen Waddington. And the reason being, on top of doing, he's had a really successful career in public relations. Met him via the CIPR, so thank you, CIPR. And he has, on top of now running a successful professional advisory business for creative agencies, he has been doing his PhD, and he's looking very much at the future of public relations and what it needs. And I'm just in awe of him. In fact, we've had a very turbulent, challenging family life for the past 4 or 5 years for lots of different reasons. And he's managed to hold that all together, run the business, manage me, jump in and from Zinc to this big role, and he's still delivering a PhD. And the body of knowledge that he's creating to take the industry forward, I just think is incredible. And we have very boring but interesting conversations on the dinner table, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, he is inspiring because like his work ethic is second to none. But the industry is and will be better for the work he will publish in a year or so's time.
I love his newsletter on a Monday. I haven't read today's one yet, but that's one of my weekly reads as well. So
the number of people who say that everywhere, but it makes me laugh because everybody, when I first kind of got into PR in the capital, as it were, so we're based in Newcastle. I'm in Newcastle today. And he was always very well known because he grew and sold 2 agencies. And then when I would come to London, I didn't really have the same network. And so everywhere I go, it's like, oh, Stephen here. I'm like, yes or no or whatever. But now everywhere he goes, it's like, is Sarah here? So we've had a complete role reversal that drives him mad. But we laugh about it. But I'm glad he'd be very pleased that you're reading his Substack.
Yeah, it's very, very good. Very, very good. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on the Digital PR podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure from start to finish hearing about your inspiring career, your brilliant work at the PRCA. We're just going to reiterate how people should get in touch with you if they want to hear more about your work, support any of your initiatives at the PRCA, and crucially, kind of if they're working for an agency in a leadership role, become a member as well. So they can catch you on LinkedIn, but just for one more time, and you said you may regret it, but your email address for people.
I'm doing it by new members, absolutely will not. But we've got sarah.waddington@prca.global or membership at prca.global. Doesn't go to me, but that would go to the team if you're interested. And everybody's really welcome. Like I say, come and help us get behind the mission, create this unified voice, because I think that's the way to really achieve change at scale. And thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy. I know I'm very earnest about this. I'm a bit of a bore, but it matters, and it matters right now.
No, it's been really great. Really interesting to hear everything you had to say. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.